guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending today. In addition to being the speakers of this panel, I think you're all sponsoring this conference in some way. Yeah. So that just happened to be a coincidence. We wanted to do a talk. What's that? Yes. They sponsored Philip Zimmerman. So that was really nice to see. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't planned. It just happened to work out the way. So what we want to talk about today is creating a Monero circular economy. So we talked about it a lot today, these ideas of essentially needing to just opt out and start using Monero, and that's how we take it to the next level, is literally adopting and using it. And to do that, we're obviously going to need tools for those purposes. Vic is the creator of CakeWallet and Monero.com wallet. Yep. Which I actually prefer. I hope you don't mind.
You're a purist.
I'm a Monero purist, those of you who haven't noticed yet. I don't know if the bow tie gives it away. But Vic said he wants a bow tie, so. So yeah. Everybody shift over? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. Yeah, if you could shut the projector, if you guys don't mind. Yeah. All right, so Vic, creator of CakeWallet, probably one of the best way to easily obtain your Monero and then actually use it as a wallet. It was the first iOS wallet. We can get into that. They also have an Android wallet, but yeah, it's become a critical utility in the Monero community. Then we have DVchain, Garrett, and what's the last? C. What's the last name? C. Oh, I thought you wanted me to guess. You were just giving me the first letter. And he is, what is your role at DVchain?
Co-founder.
Co-founder of DVchain. I was speaking about this a little bit. They're liquidity providers, and I'd love to get into that more. I actually don't know much about that sector, but they're essentially providing liquidity for exchanges. And I guess you'll get into your other customers, but the idea is they're helping Monero grow through liquidity, right? That's always something that's larped over at the Monero community. Like, yeah, but it's not liquid. It's not as liquid as Bitcoin. So major piece of infrastructure there. Then we have CoinCards, who is making it easy for people to actually then go spend their Monero in the real world. So yeah, maybe we're not keeping it circular at that point, but it's allowing us to bridge into the real world so people can live off their Monero today. A lot of things we purchased today, we did actually with CoinCards. We bought Amazon cards. We actually even bought a Home Depot card, and you could buy it essentially anonymously with Monero directly. And now it's a way to essentially spend your Monero wherever these gift cards are accepted. I don't know. I guess we'll just get into it. What would you guys? What do you guys think of when you hear the words Monero Circular Economy? Like, what do you see as being the goal there, and how we get there? I mean, that's the essence of this. So I'll let each of you kind of start with that.
Yeah. So first of all, CakeWallet is a customer of DVchain. So just want to get that out there. Thanks for the service. Yeah.
Thanks for the wallet.
Yeah. I think the most basic way to start the circular economies is firstly at a personal level. You can vote with your wallet. The businesses that you want to do business with as a consumer, you can say, hey, I'll only use your product or service as if you take Monero. I think that would be a very powerful way to get the circular economy going. Actually force your vendors to take Monero. And the other thing, again, on a personal level, always ask for Monero, whether it's in your own business or for personal transactions. So as I say, if you want to make a change in the world or whatever, be the change you want to see in the world. So I think on a most basic, small way, which I think would be effective in the long run, is on a personal level. And we can get into other stuff, but I don't want to keep talking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it must be because you were just talking to it. I mean, obviously, accepting Monero, telling people that you'd rather be paid in Monero, paying people Monero helps with the circular economy idea. I think that we've got some work to do in terms of getting it more accessible to people, right? Like a lot of the reason that someone would prefer to get Bitcoin than Monero is because they have more off ramps or more on ramps, and so a large part of it is getting it more accepted by exchanges and other kind of liquidity providers, and a large part of that is getting a good custody solution or a good enterprise wallet solution. I think a lot of the challenges with exchanges is how are we going to custody this? We're not going to put it in a Monero GUI and have a single person be in charge of the keys. And so I think that's kind of, at least from my perspective, being in the more institutional space where I deal with a lot of exchanges and high net worth individuals and institutions that have an interest in Monero or in other cryptocurrencies. One of the challenges to getting them to do more with Monero is, well, how are we going to actually custody it and move it around? So I think that's maybe not answering your question, but where I'd like to see some more developments.
Okay, yeah. Before we proceed, how would how are you guys currently going about providing this liquidity? Just to elucidate that, might as well go into that a little bit.
To clear up kind of what it is that we do there. So a liquidity provider is a market maker. So we have bids and offers, and we're always willing to buy or sell, right? And so we stream markets to lots of different exchanges and to all of the kind of retail apps that you think of. I don't want to name any names. Well, CakeWallet. Well, actually, that's actually not the best. Anyway, if you have an app where you buy Bitcoin or something, there's a good chance that we're a liquidity provider to that company. So they provide bid and ask for their customers, but then they've got to turn around and get the coins from someone, and so they often get it from someone like us. And then we also do large block trades for if a bank wants to buy something or a hedge fund or a high net worth individual wants to buy a few $1 million, then they can come to us and say, what's your price for $5 million with Monero? We give them a price. They say done, send us a wire, and then we send them coins. So it gives you like a one, you can lock in your price right away. You don't have to pre-fund. So that's kind of what it means to be a liquidity provider, is to offer liquidity.
Mike, go ahead. If you could answer the original question, and we'll continue to jump around.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just echo kind of what Vic said. Like, if anybody out here has a business, it's easy to just start accepting Monero. It's as easy as just here, pay my wallet. If anybody's ever had a business idea, why not start accepting Monero? One of the other things is I've noticed in Miami there's actually quite a surge of places accepting Bitcoin. That's low-hanging fruit. You can go into that place because they're starting to understand what the QR code redemption process is, and just be like, hey, how about Monero?
Ironically, I have the truck outside that's selling a rapist calling me because who we got to sell to accept Monero for their rapist. Just give me 1 second.
So I can address something you brought up, that accessibility of Monero, that's always a problem. I mean, right now you have companies like MoonPay and Wire, and you can just put your credit card, debit card, and you can get Bitcoin or Litecoin, whatever they're selling. So I don't know if any of you follow me on Twitter or Reddit, you probably saw the announcement already. I just launched a company called BlockBuy to compete with those guys, but for Monero. They don't offer Monero. So the goal for BlockBuy is to solve this problem, is to get Monero in the hands of people very easily just by using credit cards or debit card. Probably launch sometime in, May, I guess, at least a few states. So hopefully that helps get Monero adoption. Increase Monero adoption. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's kind of twofold. One is to get more companies comfortable with it, get compliance departments comfortable with it, and secondly, working on things like Elizabeth was working on to where you can swap stuff in a decentralized manner, or the I'm drawing a blank, but the ways that you can swap things peer to peer in a decentralized manner. Thor chain is what I was thinking of.
And I'm just laughing because BlockBuy is also using DVchain for the liquidity.
Well, right. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there's not a lot of people like us. There are a lot of people like us for Bitcoin and for Ethereum, but there's not a whole lot of OTC desks that are trading large quantities of Monero. And so we're kind of one of the last men standing, and we're going to fight the fight for as long as we can. We want to have backups.
Why aren't there a lot? Is it because of the regulation? People are concerned with dealing with potential regulations?
I think that certainly that's the case for some people. I think that's a scapegoat in a lot of cases. There's the volume's not there, relative to some of the other things. A lot of the projects that raise lots of money on ICO or that raise a lot of money in the seed round or whatever have just these billions of dollars to spend on exchanges getting them listed. And so are you going to put in a lot of effort to implement some blockchain that's different than an EVM compatible chain? Or are you going to just accept a $100 million payment to copy paste what you've already got, right? So that's part of it.
So is that's also why exchanges perhaps aren't coming to you telling you that they want to add Monero to their exchange and they want you to be their liquidity price? Is that also what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, so to be clear, we're seeing a big kind of uptick in volume in the last, especially like month or so. And I would like to think that's coming from just sort of the realization by people of a lot of the stuff that's, with Ukraine and just Bitcoin addresses being traced and people being, like the Canadian truckers, getting blacklisted effectively. I think that a lot of people have kind of woken up and realized like there's a problem with traceable money. And so I think that's been a large kind of, certainly we've gotten interest from some of the, some hedge funds because of things like that, right? Where they want to get into it. I forgot the.
No, right on track. Actually, if you could go down that path a little bit more, if you guys could throw some metrics at us, maybe in a general sense, if you don't have exact numbers on what kind of usage or growth, the amount of people that are buying CoinCards with Monero perhaps versus other cryptos, any insight you could give with your customers, and then Vic as well with, just the usage of Cake.
So I'm going to touch base a little bit on this. Every month we actually tweet our complete numbers of what coin is being used. So this last month, which would have been March, Monero ranked number 3. So Monero has been actually constantly hitting the 3rd or 4th coin spot for us, despite being a little further down on a coin market cap type chart. But the weird thing is we dug down into it. And in the US, 51% of our volume is in Monero.
Wow.
So, that's quite interesting to see that so much of our volume is coming from the US itself.
Do you have metrics on other geographic areas with usage?
Yeah, so Canada, it was number 4. I think it was around 7 or 8%. So definitely in the US, Monero is, I think the adoption here in the inflation's high and everybody's kind of trying to get out. Privacy is obviously more important to hear. And Canadians, I can say this because I am Canadian, we're kind of a timid people and we just do what we're told. But yeah.
Go ahead, Vic.
I can speak of downloads to begin with. From the day we launched, I don't think we've seen a negative growth month to month. So downloads-wise, we're probably growing 10 to 30% every month. It's really crazy. On the transaction side, the only way we could get any metrics on transaction is the exchange that people are using. we can't see how many people are creating Monero wallets, but we are a Monero wallet, so we think most of them are using it for Monero. But on the exchange side, I can tell you that 90% of our exchanges, mostly Bitcoin to Monero. I mean, people are using CakeWallet to get Monero. .org. So that's our metrics. I mean, we're seeing a growth on the exchange side. We're seeing a growth on downloads, Twitter followers, Reddit use comments. I mean, everywhere we look, we're growing on that end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of metrics to share, but I can just say so we trade a lot of coins, right? We provide liquidity to a lot of companies. A lot of companies don't trade Monero, and so typically Monero is not in the top 25 coins by volume, right? In March it was number 6, so it was maybe a 20x increase in volume in March over February. It's been 6th, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Would like for it to be number 1, but it's getting up there. It's bubbling, right?
Do you think price has anything to do with it as well? I mean, we're seeing, anecdotally, it seems like there's a lot of adoption. It's like Vic was saying, it's hard to see the amount of actual we see the transaction counts. We know that that's climbing, but we don't know the actual volume in terms of value that's going through the Monero network. So it's hard to tell there. But then we could assume that that's trending up. But then people always seem to be concerned. Well, why isn't price essentially following adoption if we're seeing a growth in adoption?
I mean, in typical and in historic cycles, we've seen the opposite of that. We've seen when the price is at all-time highs, volumes pick up, right? And it's people want to buy things at the highs. That's just, I don't know why, but that's just this human kind of psychology. And right now we're like half the price that we were a year ago, and volumes are much higher. So there's something brewing there. I mean, we're doing just on chain, right? 9% of Bitcoin transactions, right? The number of Monero transactions is about 9% of Bitcoin, and it's on fewer exchanges. So the people that are using it, right? It's not just speculative kind of arbitraging across exchanges. There's real usage out there, and we're seeing more volume. I think the price will probably follow. Certainly, if the rest of the market doesn't collapse, but to be seen, I suppose. And the thing is, if the price does make new highs, which it will at some point, right? But next time that it gets to new highs, you're going to see an even bigger explosion of volume, I think.
We had a talk today focused on the growing adoption of Monero in the dark markets. There's a lot of reason to believe it's growing there and it's actually being used there. There's stats for that. How do you guys respond to that? That's something I feel like, well, not often, but there's people that criticize me for always like having to mention that. It's like some people obviously don't, but there are those that do, and I always do to give an example of how Monero is working as digital cash. And I personally, on a philosophical level, am a big pro open markets person. But how do you guys? What is your response to that? How do you guys deal with that? How do you guys talk about that? Are you out there saying it's great Monero's using on the dark markets? Do you think it's a good thing? How do you guys respond to that type of question?
I think it's inevitable. Monero obviously is a privacy coin. It will always be a privacy coin first. And I mean, the dark market is somewhere you don't want your information out there. So, I mean, I don't talk about the dark market a lot just because I'm kind of skirting on the underside of regulations as it is. I mean, we're not regulated yet, and I don't want to be, and I don't want to be like, yeah, we're the top Monero gift card provider out there, and maybe some of it's from the dark markets. That's not something I want to be advertising, but I mean, dark markets are always going to exist, and it's the Hydra. You cut one head off, and 5, take its place.
Yeah, I was on CoinDesk TV, and they sprung that gotcha question. They said, will Monero continue to be used for ransomware and this? And I was like, yes. And I was getting to the but she cut me off like, you heard it here, folks. Monero is for ransomware and darknet markets. But what I was going to say, if they'd let me, was I think we should mention it because it's proof that it works. I mean, that's where, yeah, it's wrong. Criminal activity is, of course, wrong. But the fact is, that's where privacy and security is paramount. So I would say, yeah, I don't shy away from it. I say, yes, it's used there, which is proof that it works.
Yeah, it's an indicator that it's working for sure. It doesn't come up a lot at my company because we're generally dealing with institutions that we KYC everyone and we know them very well and know what they're doing with it. For the most part, it's hedge funds and people like that. But yeah, I mean, it certainly is an indicator that it's working.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have a regulation policy panel coming up, so we'll dig into this deeper, but would love to hear your thoughts on that, each of you, on where you potentially think you see things are heading in terms of regulation with regards to Monero in particular and in the US.
I think the governments still don't understand anything. So I'm Canadian. During that whole trucker expose, we were sent a list of Monero addresses that we weren't allowed to interact with. That's just stupid because we all know that's not how Monero works. So they're still so far beyond that. They're going to come up with regulations that just don't make any sense. Maybe they make sense to Bitcoin because that's what they understand, but it's not going to work for some of the chains like Monero.
I mean, the trend sure seems to be towards governments becoming more authoritarian and wanting control of stuff and not allowing people to encrypt and to have privacy. The government wants to be involved in every conversation and every transaction. So, I mean, that's certainly the trend. It's not the case yet, right? Like right now, Monero is not illegal, and it's it's free speech, and we're fighting to keep it that way. And so, I'd like to think that's the way that it'll go. I don't have a real.
Oh boy, not too much confidence. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, it's it's hard because like governments in so many ways are pushing back against the Constitution and against the things that used to be our values, and so it's a little disheartening for sure. But that said, I think that there are enough people that understand the importance of privacy and the importance of freedom that we can survive long enough to the point where you can't stop it, right?
Yeah. And when we had Philip Zimmerman talk, he brought up the point that Vic was just making that we need to just lean into it, right? We need to not shy from the fact that encryption can be used for these things. It can be used to empower people. It could also be, but we should lean into the fact that it could also be used for these nefarious things, and that just like the internet itself. And I thought that was he had a great way of expressing that. And then he also kind of mentioned that he saw most of his growth in PGP when he was kind of headline news there, and people were coming after him, and the government was coming. A Streisand effect, if you will, where it brought attention to it. Do you see that potentially happening?
Can you repeat the question?
So, because of the focus being on Monero, that it may be something that governments are looking at and wanting to regulate. That in essence, it ends up just bringing more attention to the project because people become curious as to why the governments may even want to ban it. And it becomes something that they want to get their hands on because, must be good if the governments want to regulate and ban it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that certainly it brings awareness. I mean, Monero is still pretty, small in the grand scheme of things, right? And compared to fiat currencies, it's nothing. And so certainly more awareness doesn't hurt, even if it's coming from people that want to squash it.
Vic, you want to comment on the whole regulation thing and where you see it going?
I mean, I'm a little more optimistic on where this is heading just because of looking at Bitcoin. I mean, when I got into Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, it was like, oh my God, this scary cryptocurrency that's used on the Silk Road and this and that. And look where we are today. When you watch CNBC in the morning, you see the Dow, you see NASDAQ, and you see Bitcoin. So new regulations, new types of laws, new types of structure. have come up where Bitcoin can play in the regular financial space. So looking at that history, I mean, looking at weed, for example, weed is legal in most states. I mean, I remember in the late 80s, you used to like hide and smoke weed. And if you saw a cop, you would have a heart attack. Like you're going to go to jail for 20 years. That's changed. I mean, who would have thought, right? So I'm definitely optimistic on the regulation. I don't know what that regulation is going to be, but I think something has to come up because the will of the people in the end should win out. I'm being optimistic. I think it will of the people will win out. People wanted Bitcoin. People wanted cryptocurrency, and we got it. Now it's going to be the next step. People want privacy. People want anonymity, whatever that word is. Non-anonymity, whatever. So, yeah, I'm optimistic. I think the old people will die out. The new people will come. You know, people that grew up with cryptocurrency. They'll make the laws. They'll make the rules. They'll make the regulation. And I think weed and Bitcoin are a good example of that.
Certainly, the Canadian trucker thing, I think, really shined a light on some of the problems, and I think that more events like that are bound to happen, and people will wake up. I mean, it's really a matter of time. The question is, does it happen too late or not? Right? Like everyone realizes at some point that privacy is important, and usually it's too late. So, the hope is to get people to realize that before it's too late.
What do you think needs to happen to get people to realize that? Is it just education, or do you think it's going to take moments like we saw with the truckers, what we're seeing, with blacklisting of wallets? Is it just?
I mean, I think that certainly the bad things happening help you realize the problem. Just as an example, you were talking about darknets, darknet markets, and ransomware. One of the great things about Monero is that there's no taint to your wallet, right? So with Bitcoin or even any of the Ethereum or Ripple or whatever, you get some taint, and there's no real rules about how much is acceptable and how much isn't. And so you might receive $1 million from someone, and $3 of it was from stolen funds, and then you deposit it in exchange, and the exchange freezes your account because some of your funds, were stolen or whatever, right? Or likewise, you send money to a counterparty who sends it off through several hops, and eventually it ends up on the dark net, and then your wallet's tainted, and now all of your counterparties are want an explanation for why you have this taint in your wallet, and oftentimes it's these the chain analytics companies are just wrong. They cluster things, and we've seen our addresses show up as being Coinbase or Bitstamp, right? And we know that they're not. It's ours. So they're not perfect, but which makes it very dangerous because it's kind of we think that it might be this, so we're just going to say it is because we'd rather have it labeled than not. And then, innocent people just get shut off. It's kind of shoot first, ask questions later. So that's what, the privacy of Monero helps tremendously in that, because you don't have to worry about people making wrong assumptions about what's going on.
100%. Mike, do you have a comment there on this topic?
Yeah, so I'm just going to say that people tend to look for solutions when they get screwed over. So I think in the instance with the truckers, everybody used GoFundMe. GoFundMe screwed them over. Then they started donating Bitcoin. Then the RCMP went after the Bitcoin. So it's just they actually confiscated most of the Bitcoin. So I mean, eventually, I got into crypto mainly because I got screwed over by PayPal at one point, right? And banks. So I was just okay, there needs to be an alternative. So I mean, I think people getting screwed over, as bad as it sounds, is gonna bring them to things like Monero, because they're gonna be okay, I bought some bad stuff on the dark market that accepted Bitcoin, but I got swatted because of it. So
I mean, we saw it already, right? Bitcoin was started as censorship-resistant peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? There was a need, and it was designed to fill that need, and it's failed on all of those points, right? It's no longer peer-to-peer; it's exchange to exchange. It's no longer censorship-resistant. Mining pools are censoring Bitcoin transactions based on OPEC sanction lists, and it's the fact that they can censor some, and the fact that more and more miners will censor, because if one is doing it and they don't want their blocks to get orphaned, they'll start doing it too. It doesn't take much before there's the ability to censor transactions. And once there's the ability, then the governments or anyone can force, censorship. And so I think, what Bitcoin was created to solve, I think it was good at for a few years, and it just didn't keep up. And Monero is the solution, and it's just a matter of time before people figure that out.
Spoken like a true Monero max.
What do you think of the meme where people, are it's kind of fading a little bit? Only acquire Monero if you need to use it, right? Whereas and by use, for purposes of transacting, or perhaps it should be more broadly interpreted as maybe you want to use it for storing value. But it really, the real meaning was if you need to use it, and then as opposed to Bitcoin, where it's like, well, even if you don't need to technically use it for transacting, you should acquire it because it's a store of value. What are your comments on that?
I think you should always have a plan B for every single situation that can come up. So I think you should always have some Monero.
Yeah, I mean the narrative of Bitcoin has changed a little bit. Right now, it's more about number go up and store of value. Right, it used to be electronic peer-to-peer cash, but I think also with the history there of the Monero thing, only buy it if you need it. The idea was this is a new experiment. It's gonna have bugs. It might have bugs. It's very risky. It could get shut down. We're talking 2014, 2015, right? And so don't go mortgage your house and buy this risky asset because you realize how great it is, because you could lose a lot of money. So don't risk too much, I think, was the main purpose. I think Fluffy Pony is the one that said that, right? And it was don't buy Monero unless you have a need for it. And then that got truncated to
we had stickers. We did a great campaign. Yeah, Monero is harmful for your health. I think we did maybe too good of a job on it. It was a genius campaign.
But I think that he later clarified, at least from his opinion. I don't mean to speak for him, but I think he said this on Reddit, that buying it as an investment so that you'll have it 10 years from now when you need it is buying it because you need it. I mean, that is a use case, right? It's just don't load the boat with a whole bunch of coins that you're never going to spend, and it's more than you can take the risk for when it's still a risky asset.
Did you want to respond to that?
I mean, I agree with everything both the gentlemen said. Why not both? Why not have it instead of Bitcoin? I think it's a good store of value because it's private. It's your stash you have. Nobody can see it, and I think it's a great advantage. And then, of course, the use case is number one. So, yeah, I agree with both of these guys.
I'm going to ask one last question, then maybe the audience has one or two questions. So what do you guys see as the biggest opportunity in Monero in terms of what needs to be provided as a business? You're working on CoinCards, you're working on Cake, you're working on providing liquidity, but what do you think is missing there? What should people be thinking about? What ideas should be worked on so that we can get closer towards Monero, having the circular economy so we can grow Monero adoption? What is missing from the ecosystem? What needs to be built?
Accessibility. I think we touched on that at the beginning as well. Everybody, whenever I talk about Monero, the first thing is, how do I get Monero? Do I get it on Coinbase? And I'm like, well, no, you got to go to this obscure thing called Kraken. You got to sign up for that. Or you can do it in CakeWallet, but you got to buy Litecoin, Bitcoin, and then convert it to Monero. So I think that's the biggest challenge for Monero right now. And not to plug my own venture, but hopefully BlockBuy will solve that problem and make it easier to access.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's correct. I think, from my opinion, is in order to get there, we need better wallets, a better enterprise grade, multi-signature MPC type solutions.
We have Binary Fates project. Have you seen that?
I'm so excited about that. Yes,
What is it called?
At Rhino.
Yeah, you want to quickly explain it for people?
Well, it's an enterprise grade multi-sig wallet. So it requires multiple approvers to send a transaction, and it's a very slick web GUI that you can It's
And
very
that's solving custody issues, basically. When we talk about big players that want to use Monero, it's solving the custody issues, custody concerns.
right. Yeah, I mean, just yes, Rhino. Yes.
Want to jump in, Mike?
Yeah, so I mean, from my standpoint, my biggest issue is I want merchants to accept Monero natively. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. CoinCards shouldn't exist. I don't want to exist as a company. I want companies to actually take Monero natively. That's still a while away, so that's why we have that bridge. But eventually, it'll get to where I don't need to exist, and I don't need to be up here. We can all just.
Oh no!
Yeah. No,
You'll be working on something else, and you'll
exactly.
be fixing another issue in the ecosystem. I always say that about. That's what I always said about Coinbase. I always saw Coinbase as actually a temporary company, kind of like the AOL of crypto. It's kind of a walled garden. It's onboarding people, but eventually we're not going to need those companies at all. Anybody in the audience have a question?
You talk about multi-sig, and as a slightly educated, but I don't understand what's the holdup with Monero multi-sig. I know there's kind of problems in the current implementation. Can you pontificate a bit on why is multi-sig harder with Monero than perhaps
Yeah, sure. So the question is, why is multi-sig harder with Monero than with Bitcoin, and what are the issues with it? The answer is I don't know the answer. I don't know the technical challenges. I know that there's a bug that needs to be fixed that requires a hard fork before it can be implemented. But I'm
goes
not
beyond my knowledge. I feel like Seth could probably answer.
Seth, you want to chime in on that?
Not really. We probably need Ko to chime in on this one if he's in here. Yeah. Give it to somebody who really knows.
He put his hand up. Straight to the expert.
The word multi-sig, and I was like, oh boy, now it's my turn. Multi-sig is hard because you have it's a shared. You want to build a shared key where some number of people in the group are adversarial. So, okay. When you have adversarial players in a interactive protocol, it amplifies the complexity required to make it work correctly significantly. So every single step in the process could be subject to an attack by one of the players in the group. So to ensure that no problems arise between the time you start building the group key and even through to creating transactions, there are a lot of problems that can arise. So that's why it's hard. And that's why it still does not work completely correctly in the code base that we have live right now.
Can I try to summarize and you tell me if I'm wrong? It requires multiple rounds of signing, whereas Bitcoin doesn't.
And how far away are we from it, improving and getting to the point where it's more usable?
Well, all the PRs to make it work are in the GitHub, waiting to be merged. So I think I made a GitHub issue outlining which ones are in progress. You can check that out. It's pretty, just getting them in there.
So problem solved, guys. Any other questions before we move on? Anybody? Nope. All right, guys. Thank you so much. If there's anything else you want to bring up before we close, is there any other comments you guys want to make? Do we have you up there? No?
If you want to buy a little bit of Monero, go to this guy. If you want to buy a lot, come to me. If you want to buy anything from someone that doesn't accept Monero,
If you want to buy an Amazon card, go to this guy. All right. Oh, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming in CakeWallet. I don't want to talk about it. I mean, we don't like to announce stuff, but it's going to be mind-blowing. it's going to make Monero even more usable in the real world. And I'm really excited about it. I like lose sleep overnight. So I think it'll be fun. It'll be good. Just a little plug.
Yeah, let's find you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for the sponsorships again. Really amazing.